Pleasure to see you here again, and on the back of our teaching together in Louis, to also meet in this forum. I also want to take actually a bit more than 20 seconds to thank Kim Shi-hong and Ambassador Ganto for organizing this event today, which is really impressive. I have to say it's a privilege to be here in such an amazing audience. To thank also Kim Shi-hong and Raphael Marchetti to put together this book. I think it's been really a privilege also to be invited to contribute to that. I'm presenting, of course, on behalf of Junga Guak and myself, where we were invited to contribute a chapter on the layer, let's say, above Italy, in the relationship with Korea, namely on the EU. And in that sense, it's also really great to follow up on Nicola, because basically he has already prepared the ground very well. But I would also like to thank Ambassador Kwon for the great cooperation that we had when he was in Rome. We organized several conferences and fora together. And actually this event today I see very much sort of as a continuous cooperation between Louis University and the various colleagues in Korea. It's really fantastic to now celebrate the 140th anniversary, but also to see how in the last few years we have intensified our cooperation also on the academic front. And finally, I would like to also give greetings from Raphael Marchetti, who, as was already mentioned, wasn't able to join us today because of circumstances. He would have really wanted to be here for this event and is regretting to miss it. And just to emphasize again how important this is also for Louis University and for the Center of International Security Studies that we have at Louis. As you heard already from various contributions, Louis is very much committed to a close cooperation with Korea, with the Korean embassy in Rome, and with the Italian embassy here in Seoul. And we very much hope to continue this cooperation also in the future. So I say that on behalf of Raphael, but also, of course, for myself. Well, as for our contribution to the book, I think the ground has prepared well. I prepared some slides, but the first message is simply to say that Europe matters in this bilateral relationship. When, for example, we celebrate the rising trade, and the numbers are indeed impressive between Italy and Korea. I think it's fair to say that is also thanks to the free trade agreement that we have between the two sides. Trade, above all, is a European exclusive competence, and the opportunities which, of course, the business community has to realize are also thanks to the massive effort that both sides, the EU and Korea, have made for trade liberalization. Which reminds me of one other thing. I would also like to acknowledge what I've learned from Kim Bong-chul, who's also here. We worked together in the context of a special issue that we published a couple of years ago on EU-Korea relations, and I learned a lot from him about the importance of the free trade agreement, both the legal dimension of that, but also the way in which trade and the way in which we facilitate trade liberalization also has paved the way for deeper security cooperation in a way that previous speakers have already emphasized. I maybe spend my last few minutes not so much on the past, but rather on the challenges for the future, because I think it's quite clear that we have a strong foundation in economic cooperation. We have a growing promise of security cooperation, but the challenges are clearly quite huge. And again, the usual suspects have already mentioned, but I want to say a few words on three separate issues. One is Trump 2.0, one is our relationship with China, and the third one related to both is also about the future of global governance more generally. Now, let's start with Trump. I think the challenge is clear. We can see it to some extent as a positive incentive to cooperate more with one another. On the first instance, within the European Union, Trump 2.0 can be a unifying factor, and then also in the bilateral relationship between both sides, because we really share so many interests that are also threatened by what might come out of the future American foreign policy. But I would also like to not take things for granted, and I think we have to be very, very careful that the future US foreign policy might be even more divisive than it was already in the past. That there is a potential for the US under Trump with this transactionalist approach to pick off potential allies against one another, and that there is a potential that there is a competition for favors from the Trump administration that we need to resist. If we want to protect our common interests, and if we want to protect also what's left of the liberal and national order, it's important that we resist this kind of temptation to do favors towards the US and rather work together for the greater good. Which brings me to the second point, which is China, where both Europe and the Republic of Korea are in very much the same boat, I think. We have a very, very strong and important trading relationship with China, increasingly also investment relationship. We are both increasingly aware how vulnerable we are towards dependency from China, and that there is a massive risk in relying too much on our trade and investment with China, that we must assure our economic security. However, we are also not really willing, which is what America appears to do, to completely decouple from China either. I think the stakes are too high to go down that route. So both Korea and the European Union are looking for a balancing act between ensuring our economic security on the one hand, and not, on the other hand, giving up completely the benefits, which are very evident, of trading also with China. And this is a challenge that we can better meet if we do it together, rather than separately. And thirdly, on global governance, there are many issues. When Michael just mentioned 5 security dimensions, I would, for example, add another European chestnut to that, which is environmental security, climate action, which is not going away. We have now wars in various corners of the world, but the global climate keeps deteriorating, temperatures keep rising, and we need to also cooperate on climate action. And again, Europe can learn a lot there from Korea in terms of ecological transition, but also vice versa. Europe is very well positioned. Global competition on strategic technologies, on things like cybersecurity and AI, but also the monitoring and regulation of digital platforms, which can be highly damaging to our political stability with disinformation and interference by nefarious powers. Both Europe and Korea are very well positioned to regulate these industries in a way that neither China nor the US are willing to do, and we again need to work together on that. And finally, maybe not to forget also the engagement with the Global South, and the degree to which we must not forget that there is another part of the world that is also very much pivotal in terms of how our future is guaranteed. So both Korea, who has a really growing development policy, and the European Union need to work together on not losing sight of the Global South. I think my time is up. I leave it there, but just to say that these challenges are really important and will need to be met by both sides. Thank you.